Good afternoon, East Goshen. Hope you're having a great Thursday. Thank you, as always, for joining me in our weekly devotional videos. We are continuing our way through the book of Ecclesiastes for Lent, and we've been working really slow through the book. And that's on purpose so that we can pick up on the key verses that we otherwise are going to miss in our read through, and that we're definitely going to miss on a Sunday morning because there's only a few weeks in Lent to cover the entire book of Ecclesiastes. And not all of the topics deserve an entire sermon, but they're great for quick little devotions like this. So what I don't want you to miss is the end of chapter 4, where the teacher talks about advancement and social standing being meaningless, because in the end we'll have a successor that will take our place. And then at the very beginning of chapter 5, he talks about fulfilling our vows and making sure we're good on our promises. So we're going to pick up in chapter 5, verse 12, which reads, "The sleep of a laborer is sweet, whether they eat little or much. But as for the rich, their abundance permits them no sleep." As we've talked about in the book of Ecclesiastes, the teacher wants us to avoid the trappings of wealth. What do we acquire in our work on this earth? We acquire material possessions and money and fortune, but ultimately it's an inheritance for someone else. You can't take your possessions with you when you die. And so there's this contrast here in chapter 5 between the wealthy and the people who are content with what they have. There's the wealthy who want more and more. Their wealth makes it impossible for them to be content because as they want to acquire and acquire and acquire, there's never enough. And so this verse is focusing on the danger of consumerism. That if we focus only on the things that we can gain for ourselves through work and through social advancement and all of these different things that we've talked about thus far in the book, it's going to be meaningless in the end. Because death will come for us all. And you can't take with you the things that you have acquired in this life. And so try as people might to fill that void in their soul that only eternity can fill. They'll never be satisfied. And so the acquisition of wealth and the amassing of fortunes will only leave the people who have them wanting more. And yet the laborer, the one who invests and works hard and finds fulfillment in that work, is able to rest at the end of a long day. It's the kind of pattern that God himself gives to us the very beginning of Scripture. The first 6 days of creation, God says that his creation is good, ending with mankind's creation, which is very good. And then on the seventh day, God rests. And so to our labor that is fulfilling and that is good and that we should find meaning in this life, it too gains the reward of rest at the end of investing ourselves and pouring ourselves out. So on the one hand, this is a good theology of work, but I want to take this into the Christian context and talk about the consumerism of spirituality. So on the one hand, we've got the value of work and not being consumeristic in riches and wealth, but on the other hand, we have to bring this into our context of spiritual consumerism. One of the things that is rampant in the American church is this spiritual consumerism, where we come in after a week of doing whatever we want, and we sit down in a pew and we consume and consume and consume, never investing in the faith community that we find ourselves in. This is a danger of spirituality. It's a danger of the Christian life, that we can only ever be consuming because what we have acquired through the gift and hard work of others is never enough. If we never pour ourselves into the things that God has called us to, if we never pour ourselves out in service, we'll never be satisfied. We'll continue to consume and consume and consume and never have our fill, because we're never finding fulfillment in the work that God has called us to as followers of Jesus. So you want to know why you don't have good rest? Why you can't seem to find that peace? Have you tried pouring yourself out, both in your work and in your service? Because the gift of rest is for those who invest themselves. Restless is the sleep of people who continuously consume and never pour out what they have been given. And so this is the danger that the teacher wants to warn us about. So we've got two questions here. How are you investing in your work and finding fulfillment in that so that you can get the gift of rest at the end of a long day? And on the other hand, how are you investing in your community, pouring yourself out in service to others, and not just being a consumer that comes in and takes, but pours out, and you can find peace and rest knowing that you have done what God has called you to. Thank you for joining me today. Please continue to ponder and consider these topics that we've talked about. And hopefully I'll see you on Sunday morning as we continue through the book of Ecclesiastes. We'll be in chapter 7 for Sunday, so go ahead and read when you can chapter 6, because we're not going to be able to cover it in our devotional videos or in service. One of the darker darker chapters in this book. So if you'd like to talk about it, send me a message or text me, whatever's the easiest way to get a hold of me. But thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.